The great, badass, world-building extremist Jerry Seinfeld said it best. There is no such thing as attention span. There is interesting and there is boring. That, my friend, is the answer to the question that I get from dozens and dozens of elite, badass marketers like yourself. Michael, how long is too long? When it comes to a sales letter, how long should my sales letter be? How long should be the sales copy on my website, on my landing page? How long should my newsletter be? Should I send a postcard or should I send a sales letter? How much is too much? How long should my videos be? Your videos are anywhere from 20 minutes to 60 minutes. Isn't that way too long? The average attention span is somewhere between 3 and 7 seconds. That's what you're dealing with today. So isn't that way too long? Aren't you losing your prospects and brothers and clients and book readers and mastermind members with videos that are 60 minutes in length? What about your book? Your book is almost 400 pages. Good morning. Almost 400 pages. Isn't that too long? Same with my mastermind sessions. I put my guys through hell on purpose every week, my champions, every single Thursday, just grinding away. 2-hour sessions minimum, then 2 hours and 15 minutes sometimes, 2 hours and 25 minutes. I don't give a shit. It takes what it takes to get the message, to teach what needs to be taught. Mark Andre, my business partner, will tell you my Blue Wing practices anywhere from 2.5 hours to 3 hours with video and off ice, and what it takes is what it takes. I don't care if I could get it done in 30 minutes, I'd get it done in 30 minutes. If it takes 2.5 hours, it takes 2.5 hours. Plus, I want to attract men with attention spans. I want to attract readers, elite men read books. Elite husbands and fathers watch 30-minute, 60-minute videos because they have functioning brains. They have an attention span. I'm my client, by the way. I'm my prospect. I want to attract elite men like myself. That's my whole goal. That's why I position and market and advertise to men plus 45 in age, married with children, grandchildren, successful, over $1 million net worth, already doing well in business and in their lives, but maybe struggling in one or two areas. Could be their marketing, their marriage, their legacy. They want to build a legacy. They want their life to be significant, just not success. Maybe they want to give back more in their community. Maybe they just want to get in better physical and mental shape. But my guys like you are already successful. Now it's about moving to that top 1% of 1%. But Jerry Seinfeld nailed it with there's no such thing as attention span when it comes to your marketing and your communication with your prospects and clients. It's about, is it interesting or is it boring? If your content, your writing, your videos, your TV ads, your website, whatever it is, if it's boring, if it's uninteresting and it's the same as everybody else, if it's boring, well, really, 3 seconds is too long. 7 seconds is too long. The number one sin in marketing, and this comes from the great Dan Kennedy, the number one sin in marketing is exactly that. Good morning. Being boring. Number one sin in marketing today. You can get a lot of things wrong in advertising and sales. You can get a lot of things wrong in business, but you can't get that one wrong. if you don't grab somebody by the throat, if you don't have that gun to the head Halbert principle, where, you know, you reach out and grab the prospect by the throat, then your message never gets heard, your email never gets clicked on, your video never gets watched, your newsletter never gets read, your social media post never gets noticed. So Seinfeld, that's just another way of saying Gary Halbert's gun to the head principle, where you need to write your copy, you need to create your promotions, your marketing, you need to coach your salespeople with a gun to your head principle. If somebody put a gun to your head, is that the postcard you would send out? If somebody had a gun to your head and said, hey, if this doesn't work, is that what you would send out? Is that the flyer? Is that the newsletter you would send out? If your life depended on it, is that the book you would write? Is that the social media post? Is that the video? I mean, these videos I shoot here, like if I don't earn your attention every 20 seconds, well, then I deserve to be clicked out. I deserve to be clicked out. If I don't bring you value every 20 seconds, if I'm boring and ordinary and mediocre and average, then you should click out and you should say, I'm not listening to that guy. I'm not listening to that guy, because I'm in the entertainment business. Jerry Seinfeld's in the entertainment business, and you, as a businessman, entrepreneur, in the entertainment business. You're in the entertainment business. There's no such thing as attention span. Like Seinfeld said, there is boring and there is interesting. Frank Kern once said that when it comes to emails, he said there's only two things that matter with email. You have to remember, like email, if you're world class, you've got a 70% failure rate. In other words, 30% of people open your email. That's if you're world class. So that means 70%, it's more likely like 90%, but 70 to 80 to 90% failure rate. They never click, they never receive, your email never arrives, your video is never watched, your link is never clicked on. 90% failure rate. But Kern said, you know what, the only chance you have to achieve, 10% click, maybe 20% of people actually see your email, maybe 30% on a great day, open up your email and actually read the copy inside. He says, number one, you have to be the most relevant thing in their life at that second. In other words, it has to be something that's important, relevant. And number two, it has to be entertaining. It has to be like, wow, that's the most entertaining thing, the most interesting thing that I could watch or read right now. Think about what we're battling. And that's great advice from the world's richest, wealthiest, number one comedian, Jerry Seinfeld. He was able to keep the attention span of the viewing public now for close to 40 years. When you think about it, Seinfeld started as a struggling stand-up comedian. His mindset was like, there's no such thing as a good audience or a bad audience. There's no such thing as attention span, good and bad. He's like, when I'm up on stage, it's my personal responsibility to keep these people engaged every 20 seconds. And if I don't, it's so simple to blame the audience, right? To blame the crowd. It's easy to blame your prospects or the email list. But at the end of the day, you were just too boring. I was just too boring. And I can see it in my videos that I shoot every day for you. There's some videos, like I have one video that has over 100,000 views. Over 100,000 views. And then I have videos that have less than 200 views, all in. Well, think about the difference. Like, it matters, right? And then when I go back and I look at these videos that have 100,000 views, 5,000 views, and man, I'm like, wow, interesting, not boring, Michael, not boring. And then I look at my weaker videos and I'm like, holy shit, I bore myself to tears. I can't believe that it's a good thing I got 15,000 steps in, because the message was like so boring, like everybody else. That was just more of the same horse shit that's out there. So I live this every day. And, you know, stories are interesting. Admissions of losing and guilt are interesting. And being a real person is interesting. But Seinfeld had it best, says it best. There's no such thing as attention span when it comes to marketing and sales. It's all about, is it boring or is it interesting? And the more interesting, the more real and authentic you can be, well, the more viewerships you're going to have, the more sales you're going to have, the more click-throughs you're going to have, the more emails that'll be read. And boring is the number one sin in marketing. Keep that in mind. The number one sin in marketing is boring. Before you send anything out, whether it's a daily email or whether you're faxing or whether you're sending a postcard or whether you're posting something on anti-social media, or maybe you're shooting a short video to your list, maybe you're putting out a monthly newsletter or sending a physical telegram like I am, just ask yourself every single time before you send it, especially if you're putting a stamp on it, is that gun to your head level? If somebody had a gun to your head, like Gary Halbert said, is that the message you would send? It has to cut through the clutter. It has to get through. It has to get read. It has to get clicked on, and it has to sell. That's the real thing. It has to sell. Is that what you would be sending? And I always stop myself and make it better. I'm like, I can add to that. I can make it more interesting. I can make it more direct. I can make it more no BS. And just remember what you're cutting through the clutter. Like, everybody has a clicker in their hand, right? You have a clicker in your hand right now. In a second, if I bore your ass, I deserve click. Because you know what? Your entire prospect, they can go and watch car crashes, they can go watch naked women, they can go watch sports clips, they can go watch talking poodles, they can go watch whatever they want. So every person in your world that's watching any of your content, whether it's online or offline, whether it's a postcard or a video or an email, they have a clicker in their hand. And Jerry Seinfeld, he writes and creates with a clicker in his hand. He's like, man, I cannot afford to be boring. My show is going to be 30 minutes. My stand-up gig is going to be 65. And the only sin that he can really never come back from is being boring. And that's the only sin that I can't come back from either. You know, attention span is for chumps. Now it's like, focus on, is this interesting or is this boring? And then keep upgrading your marketing on that principle. Is this brochure interesting or is this brochure boring? The great J. Peterman catalog was the greatest, highest priced catalog ever created in history. J. Peterman was famous for every single product, whether it was a t-shirt, a pair of pants, whether it was a watch. What did Peterman do that nobody else did? No other catalog was as read. Nobody sold things for as high a price. What did Peterman do? Every single thing in that catalog came with a story. J. Peterman was a storyteller. All of a sudden, this t-shirt is for $70 because he's telling a story about how he discovered this shirt and this fabric when he was in Argentina. Or the pair of pants, a pair of cotton pants he's selling for $200. And why? Because he tells the incredible story. Every article in my monthly newsletter, badassletter.com, by the way, badassletter.com, is a story. I talk about a story about that teaching. I'm teaching, but I'm teaching through the story. If I don't tell a story, it's boring. Same thing, every one of my telegrams, you can upgrade to Diamond with my newsletter by emailing Leanne at badassmillionaire.com. My Diamond members, my newsletter subscribers, get a real telegram sent to them in the mail every single week, like old school telegram. And what are those telegrams? They're an advanced teaching point, and it's taught through a story. It's something I've experienced in my life. So not only is it a pro tip, but it's a pro tip with a story. Same thing with these videos. Every video is a story. I'm telling you something private that happened with me. I'm walking and talking and telling you something that can help transform your world, but it's just a story. It has to be a story. You know, it has to be a story. Same thing with my book, my 25 rules. That's 25 rules explained through 25 stories. And like Jerry Seinfeld said, for me to sell books, it's not about attention span. Oh, Michael, nobody reads books anymore. Bullshit. Just means nobody reads boring books anymore. Nobody reads boring newsletters anymore. Nobody watches boring TV anymore. Nobody watches boring videos anymore. So at the end of the day, be more interesting, be more creative, be more comical, be more interesting. If you'd like help with any of this, make sure you get a copy of my book. I promise it's not boring. NoBullBook.com. It's a real book. It's 300 pages. It's a lot of things. It's like Buckley's cough syrup. Some of it tastes awful, but it works. NoBullBook.com. It's a lot of things, that book, but it's not boring. My monthly newsletter, it's Buckley's Cough Syrup Part 2. Every month I ship a newsletter to your home or office. It's a lot of things, but it's not boring. Badassletter.com. I'll send you one of these cool badass t-shirts for free. Badassletter.com. And if you really want to step up into the big leagues, then join my World Builders Mastermind. Never boring. Every 2 weeks we meet for 2 hours. I guarantee it's not boring. And you can apply for your seat at the table with your brothers. That's badassworldbuilders.com. Badassworldbuilders.com. And any questions about any of this stuff, you can reply to this email. It'll go to my badass bitch in charge, Leanne Brennan, and Leanne will be happy to answer any of your non-boring questions. So that's it. Keep that in mind. Jerry Seinfeld, no such thing as attention span. There is only interesting or there is boring. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that'll change your life. Be relentless.